Okay, here we go with Pro Tools eBook 101, Exercise 7. So there are a few exercises in these two books that deal with something called Midi. Midi is basically an electronic way to make music or to create really sci-fi sounding sound effects in your computer. Pro Tools has the power and capability for you to take advantage of MIDI technology to create music and or really cool sounding sound effects in the Pro Tools program. However, the way it's taught in these ebooks is specifically for musicians. Because this is a cinema class and then a music class, we are not going to dive very deeply into the world of MIDI. We're just going to skim it a little bit. So if you want to dig deeper, I will provide you some deep dive videos, but a lot of the MIDI work you will need to do yourself. That being said, I will go over the MIDI chapters like this one in a very basic way, so you can be ready for the certification exam and just be exposed to something I think is cool, which is called MIDI. It's just mostly a time thing. I mean, MIDI is a whole other world that we would need to spend at least 3 full classes on to really grasp, and we just don't have the time. So we're just going to skim it. But I think you'll get enough out of it to understand what it is, and it'll help you out on the exam. Okay, well, it's just like the other exercises where the media files are in the Pro Tools 101 folder. So here I am, ebook exercise 7, as you can see. So here we go, getting started. You will start by opening the Pro Tools session you completed in exercise 6. Like I said, we're building. If for some reason you've misplaced it, that's okay. They have pre-done exercises for you to do. So let's see here. Alternatively, you can use the exercise 6 sample file, and it's located in this file directory in the completed projects folder. Let's just see where that is. Let's see. Exercise media. So if you are going to be using the ones that they've already made for you, they would be in the completed exercise folder in the 101 exercise media folder. So we're in exercise 7, right? So it's telling us to use exercise 6 and then name it exercise 7 with our initials. And that is if we don't have or we can't find the stuff we've been working on. So I'm going to do that this time around. Just to show you what it's like. So completed exercise 6 sample, double click on it. And there's one thing, you will get these notes in here. Whenever you see this, you just want to say no. What this means is whenever you open up a Pro Tools session that has been created on a different computer, it looks for those inputs and outputs and that hardware from that computer. And obviously it's not seeing it because it's on your computer now. It's just letting you know that it's not seeing the same inputs and outputs that it saw on whatever computer it was on before. So you're just like, yeah, that's fine. Would you like to save a detailed report? You know, do we ever read, the user agreements for our iPhones? No. So just hit no. Boom, there we go. Okay, so when we do open up their version, what we'll notice is that if you go, we don't see our inserts and we don't see our output columns. So we want to go up to View, Edit View Windows, Inserts A to E. This is where we'll put in our effects. We'll be doing that, I think, maybe a little bit next week. And View, Edit Windows, Input, Output. Let's double check our playback engine. I'm on a Mac. I'm going to stick with Pro Tools Aggregate. If you are on Windows, you want to stick with ASIO. So yeah, I'm just going to leave it where it is. I'm going to pump up my buffer size because I'm going to be editing. Remember the buffer size, you want it to be high when you edit and low when you record. Okay. So, as you can see, We have the drum track. We've got the guitar track. We have the, well, first we have the VO track, we've got the drum track, we've got the guitar track, we've got the bass track, we've got the beach effects track, and we have the fire track. Now, there's a master track in here. I always like to keep that on the bottom. I like to go from top to bottom. The master track is always what everything is mixed into. That's always sort of the last step in the chain. So click and hold on the nameplate and drag it down to the bottom. And again, what we're seeing is the pre-made exercise that Avid has given us. If you have been able to save the one that you've been working on this whole time, it will look similar to this, so you will be able to follow along. Okay, hold on a second. Oh, there we go. Let's see what to do. Save as exercise 7 with your initials. I'm going to do that right now. So I'm going to keep it exercise 7, KT, and I'm going to keep it in the completed exercises folder. Save. There it is. Okay. So click the mute button on each of the existing tracks to temporarily mute them. So we are going to be recording some Midi, and we don't want to hear anything else right now. So we will go to VO, mute it, drums, mute it, guitar, mute it, bass, mute it, beach, mute it, fire, mute it. And master is not an audio track. It's just what everything mixes to, so there's no solo or mute for that. So we'll just leave it. So everything is muted, so we're not going to hear anything. So click on horizontal zoom to zoom in a level for a better view. That is this area right here. So I know we've been using the zoomer tool to zoom in, right? I've found it's easier just to hit this left arrow and this right arrow. See, zoom in, zoom out. So if you want to zoom in, you hit the right arrow. You want to zoom out, you hit the left arrow. That's a lot easier than going up to the magnify or the zoomer tool, clicking, zoomer tool, clicking. Instead, you just go boom, 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 boom. And if you zoom in and you need to quickly go out to see your whole timeline, what's the shortcut for that? Double click on the zoomer. There we go. But we want to zoom in a little bit, so I'm just going to go in one step. There we go. View ruler's tempo to display the tempo ruler. Double click on the red tempo event at the start of the tempo ruler. The tempo change dialog box will open, and we're going to change it to 123 beats per minute. Again, this is going into the music world, which we're not going to dive into too deeply because this is a cinema class, but it is still good to know these things if you want to dive into the world of MIDI. So, view rulers tempo. Okay, it looks like tempo is open. I'm going to close it for a second just so you can see where it is. These are our rulers up here. Bars and beats, minutes and seconds, and markers. So view, where was that? Rulers, tempo, and watch. This just opened up. And you see it's got a little arrow right there. Tempo editor. If you've ever listened to music, you'll find that unless it is, a lot of songs will have one consistent tempo throughout, but a lot of songs don't. A lot of songs will have a tempo that changes and varies over time. That's what this tempo ruler is. Right now, it's set at 120 beats per minute. It says so right here. If I want to change it right now, all I do is I click on this red arrow button. That's the tempo event button. Click on that. Actually, double click on it. And it says beats per minute. They want us to change to 123, so I'll say OK. And it's gotten a little faster. You've noticed the grid lines have become a little more scrunched together. Let's just, for fun, double click on it and change it to 150. Watch these vertical grid lines. There's more of them, and they came closer together. We're going to go into this more a little bit later. So let's just stick with the plan for now. There we go. Okay. So we need to create a new instrument track. So by now we should know that basically the difference between a MIDI track and an instrument track. Both are tracks that can accept MIDI. However, instrument tracks are, MIDI is just sort of a holdover from the old days. Instrument tracks are what people use now 9 times out of 10 because instrument tracks let you record MIDI and add a virtual instrument to that track. MIDI track let you add MIDI notes to it, but as we've learned, MIDI is not actual music. MIDI is just data. That data is literally just ones and zeros, and it needs to go through a filter in order for it to emit a sound. A MIDI track does not have the capability to do that. It can hold the MIDI data, but it needs to be routed to a different track in order to actually emit a sound. An instrument track is an updated version of a MIDI track. It holds MIDI data and it lets you apply a virtual instrument to it to make it sound like whatever you want it to sound like. So we never really make MIDI tracks anymore. We just make instrument tracks. So that's what we're going to do here. Track new, or Command-Shift-N if you're on a Mac, or Control-Shift-N if you're on Windows, to create a new track. So let's do that. And remember, where is the new track placed? Under where the highlighted nameplate is. So right now it's on, let's see here. Let's see what they ask us to do. I am going to create a new MIDI track under VO. So I'm going to click on VO, track new, create one new instrument track. I think they want it to be stereo. A single stereo instrument track, and we're going to call it Beat Wave. Wow, what's that going to sound like? Stereo instrument track. You'll notice it's in ticks. This is where we're going to talk about the difference between ticks and samples. This is all connected to tempo. When you change the tempo, something that's tick-based reacts differently than something that's sample-based. So just keep that in mind. Beat Wave. And because I've highlighted VO, it's going to place it underneath that track. There's a new blank track called Beat Wave. And we know it's an instrument track because if we expand this a little larger, doesn't this look a little bit like a piano right here? So whenever you're looking at a Pro Tools edit window and you're like, do I have any instrument tracks on here with some MIDI data? Visually, you can just tell by seeing if there's some piano keys here. It's an instrument track. Just a visual cue. Okay, so assign a virtual instrument to the instrument track. Okay, now it wants us to go into the mix window. So we go up to Window Mix, or hit Command equals or Control equals if we're on Windows. So Window, Mix, and now we're in the mix window. I'm gonna make this a little bigger so it's a little more pleasant to view. Okay, so there is Beat Wave, and this is a little sneak preview. When you're in the mix window, you might say, what's an audio track and what's an instrument track? Well, an audio track has a little icon that looks like a knocked over Christmas tree, but really what it is, it's a waveform. Instrument tracks, again, have something that looks kind of like a piano. It looks like 2 or 3 piano keys right there. That lets you know that this is an instrument track. This is a master track. It's like a, what is that, epsilon? It's like the Greek letter, epsilon right there. That lets you know that's the master track. There are other types of tracks, which we'll get into later. But right now, these symbols are important just so you can visually see without having to guess what types of tracks they are when you're in the mix window. Okay, so Beat Wave. As you can see up here, we've got our inserts. Now we're going to use them. Remember, inserts are an effect that is inserted into a track that affects how that track sounds. It's inserted into the track, and it's inserted into the path of the audio. So the audio is going along, and then it hits an insert effect, and that insert effect affects it somehow. Maybe it gives it an echo. Maybe it lowers the pitch. Whatever it does. And then that audio track keeps going out to your speakers so you can hear it. In this case, we are adding something called expand. So expand is what we call a virtual instrument. So click on Insert Selector A and choose Multi-Channel Plugin, Instrument Expand to Stereo. Okay, so, oops, let's go into the mix window. Okay, inserts. Here we are in Beatwave. See, it says Beatwave. Scroll up to the top. So this is insert slot A, B, C, D, and E. Underneath that are sends. We're going to go into that in a couple of chapters, so don't worry about that right now. This is where we add effects. So it says to put it in insert A's empty slot, which there's nothing here. All you have to do is just click on it, just hover your mouse over it, click once, boom. Now remember, this in the last chapter I talked about stereo versus mono. This is a stereo track. Therefore, this plugin or effect in Pro Tools are the same thing, is a multi-channel plugin. If this was a mono track, this right here would say mono plugin, but it's stereo. Stereo is made up of two interleaved mono files, left and right. So it's multiple mono files, multi-channel plugin. It's just the terminology that Pro Tools uses. Click on that, and then we have a whole range of plugins or effects to insert into this audio path. EQ, dynamics, things like compressors, expanders, limiters, pitch shifting, reverb, delay, modulation. If you want that, modulation is really cool. It does things like flanging and phasing. It basically makes your sound sound like it's coming from outer space. Harmonics, noise reduction. Maybe you've got a lot of hiss. This is sort of like some presets to get rid of it, for example. It's saying to go down to instrument. Everything that you would apply to an instrument track, you would find in here. Everyone should have, I've got probably more than what you have in there, but at the very least, you should have Mini Grand, DB33, and Expand 2. At the very least, you should have at least 1, 2, or 3 of those things. If you have all of these things, great. If you only have one of them, we can work with that. But everyone should have Expand 2 if you are on the PC laptop or have installed all the plugins that I told you to install. So you want to click on Expand 2. Watch what happens. Watch right here. You can see now this little insert slot A, now is filled up with a little tab that says Expand 2. That lets me know that this track has an inserted plugin effect on it. And whenever you add an insert plugin effect, a window comes up that lets you control the power of that effect and what it sounds like. Instrument tracks and instrument effects are really interesting because they're more about what instrument do I want this to sound like. Remember, this is a MIDI track. MIDI is data that we might have played into the computer on a piano or something, but the computer doesn't know what it sounds like yet. The computer needs to be told, is this supposed to sound like a church organ? Does it sound like a grand piano? Is this supposed to sound like a trumpet? Is it supposed to sound like a trombone? I don't know. That is what Expand and other instrument plugin effects do, is they tell MIDI what to sound like. So if you have opened this up on your computer and you got a message that says cannot find my Expand file, it's possible that the plugin was installed but it doesn't know where to find the folder on your computer. Well, If you are on a Mac, all you have to do is go into your Finder and type in expand. And you'll see you should have, I've got different versions of it, but you should have expand in your applications folder in a folder called Air Music Technology, expand 2. So in applications in Air Music Technology and expand 2, there's a folder, and in that folder there is a file called expand2.big. If you click on that, if it's giving you this message right now that says, I can't find the expand file, this is where it is. It's in the Air Music Technology folder in your applications folder. If you're on a PC, like the PC laptop, I tried to tell each PC laptop to just go to it, but if it doesn't, just click on the browse button that has shown up in your window right around here, and it will automatically go to the location that the expand plugin is residing. It just will go there, and all you have to do is click, I think, open or locate, or I forget what the button is, but it automatically goes to that window. Just click on the button in the lower right that says OK, basically, and it will connect to the plugin. So if you're not getting an error message, great, then just keep on going. So it's saying to click on the librarian menu and select Action Pads Space Race. Okay, this is where you're going to see the craziness of expand. I just have to find it. There we go. Right here, where on mine it says factory default. If you click on this, you'll see polysynths, brass, percussive, soft leads, hard leads, organs, strings, vocals. We can make this sound like whatever we want, but it's telling us to do soft pads. What did it say? I always forget. Action Pads Space Race. Action Pads Space Race. Okay. Action Pads. Oh, goodness me. There it is. Jeez, it's like pretty much all the way down. Okay, so you click on this. And what it does is it lets you, once it's in there, you can adjust. Don't adjust any of this yet. Listen to it first. But here you can make different aspects of the effect loud. If it's got reverb, you make the reverb loud. If it's got echo, you make the echo quiet, and so on. There's all of these different controls to fine tune it. You can just spend all day doing this. So we have now told this track to sound like, what is this called? Space Race, whatever that's supposed to sound like, with whatever MIDI we throw in there. So that's good to know. Create a click track for the session. Choose track, create click track. An aux input track named click will be added to your session. Open the transport window by choosing window transport. Click on the transport window pop-up menu and verify that the MIDI controls and expanded transport are enabled. That's these controls right here. This is the conductor button, and this is MIDI merge, and this is the click track button right here. So let's go up to track, create click track. It should create it right underneath this one, beat wave. And if you go into mix, you'll see here's our click track, and there this is called an aux track or an auxiliary track. The aux track symbol is a down arrow. So let's click verify the MIDI controls and transport expanded transport are enabled. Window transport. Okay. So we don't want MIDI merge on right now. We want, actually, here, let's do this. Just so we can. So we want the conductor window on. We want MIDI merge off. We want the metronome on. And we want wait for note on. Okay, we are good to go. See, that's the expanded transport. When that's off, we just see a minimal transport. We always want expanded transport on. That's pretty much the whole point of this. It's this little button right there. Okay, recording a MIDI performance. So we're going to be recording. So right here, it even says, for best results, use a buffer size of 128 samples or lower. And choose event operations input quantize to open the input quantize window. So what this means is that as we play our notes, Pro Tools is going to realize that we are human beings and that we cannot keep the rhythm totally perfectly. So input quantize, what it does is it quantizes the notes coming in and it sets them up to the specific beat. So even if we're like a half second off, it'll move it to the beat for us as we're recording. We can't be totally sloppy. We have to at least try and get close. But Pro Tools will help sort of round it off for us. It's kind of crazy, but it works. So, playback engine, 128 samples, like it said. Okay. Event operations, input quantize. Event operations, input quantize. So it's said to quantize it to, let's look. Set the quantize grid to a quarter note. Leave all other options unchecked. So we want enable, note on, note off, quarter note. Enable, note on, note off, quarter note. It should look like that. Great. Close the window, then choose Window Edit or press Command to get back to the Edit window. And then it says make an 8-bar record selection and activate wait for note recording. Verify that the session is in grid mode and set the grid to quarter notes using the grid value pop-up selector on the right side of the toolbar. So, here we go. We are in bars and beats right now. See this? This is our counter. It's in bars and beats. We want to select something with the selector that is, let's see, I think they said an 8-bar record selection and activate wait for note. Okay. So, I should point this out to you right here. So here's a start and end. I'm starting on bar 2. I'm going to end on bar 10. Let me zoom out a little bit. There we go. Bar 2 to bar 10. Boom. See? Start at bar 2, end of bar 10, length 8 bars. So, here comes the fun part. Record enable the beat wave track by clicking record enable. Click the record button in the transport window to enable wait for note MIDI recording. So what will happen is we'll hit the record button and then we'll hit record and then play, but it won't start doing anything until we start actually playing. So we're going to hit the stop, play, record buttons. They'll begin to flash, and you'll hear the metronome click begin to sound, and then we'll start playing. So, record enable. How are you going to play? Well, a recent update of Pro Tools lets us play. Window, I'm sorry, where is it? Yeah, window, MIDI keyboard. Up until basically the middle of 2020, you would need a piece of hardware to finish this exercise. You don't have to do that anymore. We have a virtual MIDI keyboard in Pro Tools. It's super simple. It's like 1 octave. Can't really do that much with it. But it will help us get through the exercise. Window, The one thing is that if you use the MIDI keyboard, the wait for note feature does not work. The wait for note feature only works if you have hardware plugged into your computer, which we don't. We're using a virtual MIDI keyboard right here. So it's good to know what wait for note does, but unless you have an actual MIDI keyboard, you won't be able to use this feature. So what we're going to do is turn off wait for note, keep beat wave record enabled, and make sure that we still have our bars or 8 bars selected from bar 2 to bar 10. And what we'll do is, since we've selected this selection, remember what we learned before about recording, it will only record within this window right here. So we will record enable beat wave, hit the record button, and then when we're ready, hit the play button. And we'll do something really simple. They give us specific instructions in here because it's, like I said, this isn't a music class, so I'm not going to have you guys like try and do something rhythmic. Just hit, I would say, just maybe hit the A, the S, and the D, and then maybe the K keys just to have fun. But hit the first few keys for like a couple beats, like A, S, K, K, J, 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 like that sort of a thing. Just so you can hear the different sounds at different lengths and different velocities. So let's hit play whenever we're ready and just start hitting the keys. And when we're hitting the keys, you should hear the expand effect happen. And then sometimes you'll get this CPU load error. If that does happen, try to increase the buffer size. This is good. This is good that this has happened, because what happens here is you can go into Playback Engine, increase it. Even though it's set to lower it, this error message is telling me to increase it. I'm using an older computer, so I probably have to do that. Hit OK. So I am going to select this selection again. Still record enabled. Record, play. There we go. So let's hear what that sounds like. Probably pretty bad. Hit the grabber so I could just select that bit, hit play. Now I have these other tracks muted, so we only hear this. Pretty cool, huh? Now check this out. If you click on the expand plugin, it opens up, and if you're like, you know what, that sounds cool and all, but I want something different. Well, all we got to do is click on Space Race. It's like, you know what, I want it to sound like a sad organ. And now we play it. See what I mean? And then up here where it says expand to, maybe I don't even like this expand plugin. Click on that. Go back into instrument. Let's do a MIDI grand. Let's just do something completely different. Okay. So now this will be much quieter and much more subtle, but let's hear what this sounds like. See the keys? Actually sees it's actually playing the keys. So this is what MIDI is all about. If you're like a one-person band and you've got an actual MIDI keyboard and you know how to play piano and you've got a laptop, plug it in, open up Pro Tools, and you can make a whole like violin track and a whole like, I don't know, flute track and a whole guitar track, and then sing, and then throw in some drums, and then boom, you just did an entire song on your computer with your MIDI keyboard. It's crazy, but people do it, and this is how they do it. So I'm gonna go back to expand though, because I think expand is cool. I'd rather just stay there. And that is the gist of this exercise. It does go on. If you are having trouble with recording MIDI, for some reason the virtual keyboard is not working for you, you can import a MIDI clip and to do exactly what I just did. So let's do this. I am going to, let's see what they say here. Oh, I want to point out one other thing. Note how each note, each MIDI note is right on the grid. That is because we input quantized. I was not playing in any like solid rhythm at all, and it knows that. So every time I hit a key that was maybe a little bit off, that was maybe not quite on this line, or not on this beat, or on this beat, it would put it on the nearest beat. So it would always be, and not, or whatever it was I was doing. That's input quantizing. It places it on the grid, on the beat, as you're playing, even if you're playing imperfectly. And you can do this after the fact too. It's called quantizing. So let's see here. Choose File, Import MIDI, and navigate to the Exercise Media folder from your downloaded files. Exercise Media. Select Beat Waves mid file and click Open. Let's see here. File, Import MIDI. Okay. Import MIDI. Okay. So it's saying it is in the Exercise Media folder, which is folder number 2. There it is. Beatwaves.mid. Open. It's saying, get rid of these guys. It's saying, in the MIDI options dialog box, select clip list as the destination. Again, I agree with that. Clip list, and it will be placed in the clip list. And then place the MIDI clip on the beatwave track to finish the performance. It says, using the grabber tool, select first wave 01 MIDI clip, drag it to the start of the beatwave track. With the grabber tool, select that and drag this clip onto track and position it at bar 10. Now we know why we recorded between 2 and 10, because this exercise is wanting us to place pre-made files at bar 1 and then at bar 10. So import this into the clip list. You got it. There they are. So first wave. Let's zoom out a little bit. So what it's saying here is it's not liking what we did. So it's just telling us to take first wave, place it at the beginning, overwriting what we did for the, see, there we go. And then second wave and putting it right after that. Boom. And look, when you take the grabber, again, watch your counters. It's letting you see where it's going to drop. I want this to drop at bar 10. 10 beat 3, 10 beat 2, 10 beat 1. Boom, right there. And we want this to be on, was it action pads? Space race. And now let's unmute everything. You can do that quickly by option clicking or alt clicking if you're on a PC. Let's get rid of this window, undo the record enable, option click just this mute right here, and watch what happens. But you know what? Let's mute the click track so we don't hear that. Now, in the timeline, with our selector tool, just click anywhere and hit the return key to go back to the beginning. And now let's just hit play and hear what this sounds like.
Summer's here and it's time for some fun in the sun. But don't hit the dunes unprepared. Spaco and Surfshop has the coolest beach gear so you don't get baked by the sun. Our gnarly accessories include swimming apparel, sunblock, boogie boards, flip-flops, and oversized beach towels with sand-free technology. So keep the sand at the beach and the waves within reach. Stop by Spaco and Surfshop today.
So, yeah, my computer's running hot, so I get this message a lot. This will happen to you if you're running a slower computer like me. So, yeah, what does this one sound like by itself? Let's look at that. And like I said, you know how to make that sound like however you want it to. So, obviously it's not mixed yet. You know, the vocals are a little low, and in my opinion, this track should be a little louder. We'll do that, I believe, in Chapter 9 in later lessons. But that's it for now. So once you do that, take a picture of the screen, send it to me, and you are good with exercise 7. All right.